Time for a rebuild for the New Orleans Saints. Off the bench overtime, Bob and Jacob Hester. Why the struggling Saints need major changes. Let's get right into the video, ladies and gentlemen.
Coaster rides on. Heading into the bye week, you're 5-5. You got a really big matchup with the Falcons on the other side of the bye week.
Season on the line. Yes, division on the line.
Atlanta, you really cannot screw that up. Is that in Atlanta? I can't remember.
Yes,
the next one's in Atlanta.
And, you know, it's interesting. I don't know that I've ever quite seen a season as up or down as the one the Saints were in, where 1 week we come in and we're like, all right, dude.
Oh, that would be last year, actually. Last year was up and down. Last year was who knows what we're getting week in, week out. Same as this year. It's just different faces in different places. But the story's the exact same. Which defense will show up? Elite, top 5? Or will Taylor Heineke have 400 yards of passing in the first half? Which offense will show up? Jameis Winston? Derek Carr? Will we throw to Chris Olave? Or will he have 0 targets? Will Rashid Shaheed catch 3 passes for 150 yards? Or will he not be used at all? Taysom Hill, will he be the focal point of the offense? Or will he not have a carry? All these questions and more on the next episode of the New Orleans Saints 2023 season.
Dude, you know, hey, maybe they're actually okay. Maybe they're pretty good. Look at the weapons, Taysom Hill. And then the next week we come in and like they look and they just look terrible. It's not like they just look like bad or below par, but like actively terrible.
Yeah.
Like getting down to Josh Dobbs Viking and that's not disrespect against Dobbs as much as it is just an acknowledgement of this is a top 10 NFL defense.
Not so sure about that. At the beginning of the year, I would have said sure. But after the last 3 weeks, I don't think you can be a top 10 NFL defense if you're letting Gardner Minshew, Tyson Bagent, and Josh Dobbs absolutely carve you up. Like, absolutely bend you to their will. The Vikings had 1 punt in the first half. You just can't tell me this is a elite level defense when we're letting the quarterbacks that we're facing, we're letting them do what they're currently doing to us.
Josh Dobbs got there a week ago. They should not be able to go up 24-3 in the first half. And you saw that in the second half, right? I mean, they scored 3. Yeah. Like, so you saw more of what it should have been like from the beginning. So again, it's not just at the same.
I caveated this in our recap, but if you're up, think about if you're playing Madden or playing a video game or something, you're up 24-3. What are you going to do? You're going to just take the air out of the game. You're going to run the ball. You're going to play it safe. You're not going to take chances. You're trying to kill clock. You're trying to control the game. So I think it's a bit if you're saying, look, whoa, after we gave up 24 points and 400 yards of offense, we kind of slowed them down. It's like, is that what happened? Or did they slow themselves down? Did they slow the game down? Did they try and kill the game? Very different, very, very different lines of thinking there. Where on one token, you could say, wow, the defense really did, the defense stopped. Defense kind of controlled them. But then the other side would definitely say, well, I mean, what was actually happening? It was a bunch of runs. It was a bunch of the safe plays. They slowed everything down. So I'd combat that line of thinking as well.
Show up the next week and they're okay. They're so actively bad that it's infuriating. And so it's causing this rift in the fan base where some of us are saying, hey, enjoy the journey, enjoy the wins. Winning's always fun. Winning the division's fun. And then the other side's like, well, yeah, I kind of agree, but I don't want ownership in the front office to get negative reinforcement, right? Where you win an awful division and maybe you're not that good, but you're like, hey, we won the division. So, we did a good job and everything was like all the people we hired, everything was great. So that is where.
So, yeah, I mean, T-Bob's hitting on a huge divide for sure. And I have week in and week out in the comments, on the videos, I have strongly been, and I'm not going to say that's what T-Bob's talking about here, but I think the conversation we have every single week, I'm strongly against the idea of we're bad, we have a lot of problems, but we backed our way into winning the division, so everything's cool. That's not how, that is a horrible way of looking at it and running a team. We joke around with colleges that do that, right? Some colleges are like, All Kentucky's got to do is schedule a bunch of nobodies, beat Florida, and go to a bowl game. If they do that, all good. It's like, that's not the way you should be doing it. You should be trying to compete. You should be trying to be better. It shouldn't be just have the results dictate everything. We should have people, or we should have the front office, and they should know the product isn't great. The product isn't awesome. The product needs to be better. We need to be better. We, as a front office, we need to be putting a better product on the field. Whether we back into, a division or back into the playoffs or whatever, that can't be good enough. I get told a lot in the comments, a win is a win, and I'm here to tell you that's just not the truth. It's not the truth. A win is not a win. There are very different kinds of wins. There are very different kinds of losses, and the Saints should the product on the field right now should be being looked at very hard by the front office, because this is not a winning product. This is not a product that can sustain wins. This isn't a product that can sustain success over a couple of years. I think the best thing to do in years like this is say, okay, luckily it's not a total dumpster fire. We're being saved by our schedule. We're being saved by the division being down. Good. Thank God. Thank God we can fix the problems while we're 10-7, or we can fix the problems like that in that situation, and we don't have to be staring at 2-8 and trying to fix the problems then. That's how I look at it. I would look at this as a gift of, we can fix things while it's not that bad, because you don't want to be the Patriots. You don't want to be in a situation like the Giants where you're staring at 1, 2, 3 wins. It's unwatchable. The fan base is pissed, and you've got to make a turnaround immediately. You got to make a turnaround now because you're bad. You're officially bad. The Saints are lucky they're not officially bad because of the schedule and the results, but that should not mean that nothing should change. That'd be wild.
If we on the outside can see that, then you would hope,
yes,
obviously they can as well, right? And so you would hope the front office and the decision makers would be able to enjoy the results and try to produce maximum results while also acknowledging what is clearly deficient. Just because you win a bad division does not mean no changes need to take place.
T-Bob. Somebody's been listening to the boy. T-Bob sounding real smart right now. This is couldn't agree more. Very well said. I'm glad that we're all aligned. I'm glad when we're reacting to, whether it's New Orleans football or on Twitter or OTB or whatever, the people who cover the Saints, we're aligned. So it's very interesting. How are we aligned, but the front office seems to be the only ones who are not aligned?
And that's what I'll be interested to see out of the New Orleans Saints this offseason, right? Are you willing to make necessary changes after the year to address your issues? And there's multiple levels to this, right? Maybe it's like we talked about yesterday, drafting a quarterback in the first round. Even though you have somewhat of a financial commitment to Carr, but it's really not that long-term of a commitment.
It's really not.
All.
Yeah.
And
it's like 2
matter.
years.
You should try to get better at every position every year anyway.
Yep.
And so if you have a guy and you score him very high, a la Jaden Daniels or something, or anybody, right? I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out this year. If you have a guy that you believe in, go take that man. Try to get better at that position in both the short term and the long term. Maybe it's an OC change, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if you win the division. I don't have a ton of faith in Pete Carmichael. It's too questionable. It feels too behind the times. It just doesn't work in this new era of Saints football. So it's not consistent enough. It's just
go off King. T-Bob, it sounds like the smartest man I've ever met right now. Yeah, I mean, look, it's time. It's time for that. It's time for, imagine just how much better we'd feel if we draft, let's say Jane Daniels. It doesn't matter. But let's say we draft a quarterback, top 15. Draft a first-round quarterback, get rid of Carmichael, bring in Eric Bieniemy, bring in Ben Johnson, whoever. And we're sitting there like, all right, okay, we're moving forward. We're moving forward with this team. That has not happened since Breeze got here. Because after Breeze, we knew we weren't moving forward. We knew we weren't. We knew that the Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, Jameis, Andy Dalton, we knew all that was just a temporary fix. And the Derek Carr thing, temporary fix too. At the maximum, it's only like a 3-year deal. So we knew, like, okay, we're going to try and win with Carr in this window, but that's not a long-term thing. You go and draft whoever it may be, whoever can fall to you, wherever you can move up in the draft, and you go get your first-round quarterback, and you couple that with a new head coach, new OC, new DC, you're bringing in new visions, new ideas, new whatever. I'd be ecstatic. I'd be so excited for this team. I'd be so excited for the future of the Saints. I'd be so excited to see what happens, even if it fails. Even if it fails, it's like, all right, whatever. We took a shot. We tried that. Let's try it again. Let's try the next quarterback. Let's try the next coach, whatever. And you just keep moving until you find yourself in a situation like the Bengals, where, damn, we hit on Joe Burrow. We hit on Zach Taylor. We hit on Jamar Chase. Or you find yourself in a situation of a lot of these, like the Jaguars, where, boom, you got Trevor Lawrence. Boom, you got Doug Peterson. Like, Trevor Lawrence was a hit, right? But he wasn't a hit immediately. Urban Meyer sure as hell wasn't a hit. But then you kind of got everything figured out with Peterson. So it's not going to be a 1-for-1. It's not going to be draft Jaden Daniels, go to the Super Bowl. It might be draft Jaden Daniels or draft whatever quarterback, go get an OC and a head coach and a DC. The head coach doesn't work out. Boom, get a new one. The DC doesn't work out. Boom, get a new one. And the next thing you know, bam, lightning in a bottle. And you're set. That's what we got to do. We've got to usher in these changes. I mean, that we really do need a major change vision-wise. Major change. If it was me, I've said his name a million times, I would be having a very long conversation with Ben Johnson. And I would try and figure out, hey man, do you want to be a head coach right now? Or do you want to be an OC? Do you want to leave Detroit? Do you want to try something else? If so, I'd give him a real look. And if he says no thanks, and an hour later, I'd have a meeting with Eric Bieniemy. Hey, Eric, do you want a shot at being a head coach? Or do you like being an OC? What do you want to do? And I'll tell you this too. Here's another one. I didn't plan on unleashing my plan. Let's say I hired Ben Johnson as my head coach. The DC, I'm going to go find a DC with head coaching experience. I'm going to go find the Vic Fangios. Because I'm going to give my brand new young coordinator turned head coach, I'm going to surround him with as much experience as I can so that he learns how to be a head coach. Because whether it's Bieniemy or Johnson or whoever, the Shane Steichens of the world, those kind of OCs, I'm looking at them as being the next Sean Payton. Like, all right, who can I find for the next 15 years? How can I make them successful? And if that's pairing them with a DC who might be an average DC, but he's got head coaching experience, he can help develop my new head coach too. Cool. Sounds good to me. And then we're trying to build the roster. It's that easy. That's what I'm doing. 100%. First two people I'm calling. Ben Johnson, Eric Bieniemy.
Just not. And then you get into maybe even going to the full extremity and doing a head coaching change. And now I look, the Saints are very hesitant to do that anyway. So I doubt they would do that if they actually finish out and they manage to win a division, even if it is at like a 9-8 or something like that. And it's gone awry in the past. You look at like firing like Amani Williams with the Pelicans after making the playoffs. But I guess all I'm saying, Jake, is I hope that the decision makers and leaders can look at the team, enjoy the success, but also be objective about
agreed.
This was good, but in many ways not good enough. How do you fix it?
I think Texas A&M needs to bring Dennis Allen home. I just think that, that works out for everybody.
NFL head coach, it's a home run, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he was a player there. I think that would really shore up some things for everyone involved. We talk about his record all the time as far as what, like, the overall record is.
Yeah, one of the worst head coach ever. 20-43.
It's really getting time where we start talking about he's 12-15 in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So it's not –
He has got a ton that I will give Mickey Loomis that. He has not shortchanged any of these guys. He's given Dennis a very long time to succeed. He's given Pete a very long time to succeed. So I think I mean, Dennis and Pete have to feel like it's time. They have to know. They have to know that it's not working, that they don't have the juice. They don't have what it takes to get there. They've got to know that. They can't keep losing. They can't keep hearing the fans. They can't keep seeing the struggles and honestly think, like, oh, maybe I can do this. I think Dennis is a great DC. He's a terrible head coach. It is what it is. He's 20-43. He's 23 games under 500 as a head coach. Sorry. It is what it is. Pete Carmichael. I got nothing good to say about the guy. I mean, like with Dennis, I can say, hey, he's a good DC. I can't say anything about Pete. I don't know. But he's had almost 2 decades to prove that he can literally do anything. And he can't. So get him up out of here. It's that simple. You hate to wish a guy loses his job, but I'm sorry. It's the NFL. There's only 32 of these jobs in the world. There's only 32 head coaching jobs in the world for the NFL. Dennis has one. Should he? No. Pete Carmichael, 32 OCs. Should he be an OC? Should he have that title? Should he have that job? No, he shouldn't. So get him out of here. It is what it is. He's drawn a check for long enough. So they got to go.
Just his time in Oakland. Like, now you're 3 games under 500 with a talented roster in a very poor division in which you finished 3rd in a year ago. Yeah. This year you stayed pretty healthy for the most part, certainly compared to other times in recent memory for the Saints. And so, like, that conversation needs to be had. Also, right, when you're looking for consistency in the NFL, they haven't gotten that. You win 2 games, you lose 2 games. You win a game, you lose 2 games. You win 2 games, you lose a game. I mean, the roller coaster that you're talking about, T, it's been in full force all season long. You cannot.
But that like, we talked about that with Dennis Allen before. We talked about believing Dennis Allen is the guy to get you consistent wins. That his track record shows you he's not that guy. Like, I keep saying the Saints need to go 6-1 in their last 7 games. Dennis Allen is 23 games under 500 as a head coach. He's 5-5 right now. What in the world would make me think, yeah, Dennis Allen is the head coach that could take a team 6-1? Yeah, for sure. He has never done that, ever, in his career.
Consistency. Like, you start to win some games and then you lose 2 in a row. It's like it's just up and down, ebbs and flows. And, like, you'll get excited about the win streaks. Like, when you beat the Colts on the road, you came back and you beat the Bears. It's like, all right, here we go. You got an opportunity against a quarterback that's been there about 10 minutes. Yeah. Top defense, like you said, T.
Yeah, but even then, it's like Colts. We beat the Colts, have a good performance. Cool. We have the Bears at home. Tyson Bagent is the quarterback. And what happens? We lay an egg. Yeah, we got the win, but we were +5 in the turnover margin at home. We won by 7. We won by a score against Tyson Bagent. He was playing Division II football last year. So even that, we can't be consistent. Even when we string together 2 wins, the second win can't be anything like the first win. The offense can't be anything like that game. And then what was happening in the Bears game? Taysom was really, really good. What happened against the Vikings? He had 1 carry. I keep harping on that, and it's not because I think Taysom needs to have 10, 15 carries. It's that we need to have a scheme. We can't go from Colts game, you can't do this. You can't go Colts game, Shaheed has 160 yards receiving, to Bears game, can't really do much offensively, Taysom carries the offense. Vikings game, Rashid's not involved, Taysom's not involved. Like, it's so up and down just with personnel. It's not, the results aren't just up and down, but like how the results are happening, the personnel, the decision making, the scheme, all of that's inconsistent. That's what drives me probably the most crazy.
Right, down their best weapon in Jefferson. Let's go find a way. And then you get beat by the obvious guy, like on offense.
Yeah,
like
the one guy.
Weapon they have left.
Yeah. You get beat by the obvious choice. And so those are the things that are so frustrating for Saints fans. It's because you're looking for that consistency. You're looking for them because they should have gone into Minnesota against everybody that they had available, and you should have won that game.
I mean, look at how hapless the Vikings offense was in the second half. Like that's what it should have been like for 90% of the game. It's the NFL. Maybe they get a couple drives. It should have never jumped out to 24-3.
No, because then, I mean, you get into a situation where you can't do the things that you've been really good at. Once you get down like that in the NFL, it's 2 minute. You're in 2 minute for the rest of the game.
But that's also why I have a quibble with Pete Carmichael. You get the ball back with 11 minutes left. You're down 1 score.
Yeah.
And you just don't run on a day.
That's another thing. I was having a conversation with this after the game. I understand the whole, like, hey, we're down 24-3. We got to start doing some stuff. The last quarter-ish was just basically your normal offense. You were down a possession. You had multiple possessions where it's like, run your offense and score. You don't have to run this 2-minute offense. So you can get back to kind of doing what you want to do. You've got yourself back into this game. So it wasn't just a whole 2-minute offense for the entire back half. You know, we had a situation where we could have kind of shifted back to what we actually wanted to do. But Carmichael just is not good enough at the game flow to understand that.
When you're averaging 5 yards a carry.
We talked about it yesterday. I agree with you. And they stayed like in that 2-minute mode for the entire game, even when they got it to 1 score. I don't get behind that.
Yeah.
Right? Because, again, let's go back to it. Like, you've had success because you've used everybody, the totality of your weapons on offense, and you've used Taysom Hill in 1 carry. He had more catches than he had carries in this game.
Derek Carr had more rushing yards against Minnesota than Taysom Hill did. That's a fact. And Derek Carr did not play the entire game. And Derek Carr is a quarterback. And Derek Carr is not a mobile quarterback. Like, there's no reason that should have happened.
So, like, I don't know why they won't consistently, like, come up with a game plan that is a winning game plan.
Thank you.
It's all
they
over
can't.
the place. And when
that's the answer.
Success,
they cannot.
It's like they get too comfortable. And they're like, no. We got to go the opposite.
At some point, the answer is in front of you. Why can't Dennis Allen win consistently? Because he cannot. He never has. Why can't I do a 360 windmill dunk? Because I can't dunk. Because I cannot dunk a basketball. There you go. Like, you wouldn't watch my game tape and be like, man, I just don't understand why James can't do a 360 windmill dunk. You would understand real quick. Because he cannot do it. He physically can't do it. Okay, makes sense. Same with Dennis, same with Pete. Like, after 20 years of this, us saying, why can't Pete Carmichael or at least 2 seasons, take away when he was getting Sean Payton's Chipotle orders or whatever he was doing before. The last 2 seasons, he's shown that he cannot come up with a game plan. He cannot adjust mid-game. He can't do any of that stuff. So now, why are we sitting here saying, I just don't get why Pete Carmichael can't come up with a cohesive, game plan week in, week out. Brother, he's never done it. The answer is there. We just have to accept the answer.
And they felt like they were chasing points, like they were down 3 scores when they were down 8 multiple times in that game.
Yeah.
And so I guess my overall message is, like, as we see these 2 camps in the Who Dat Nation start to emerge, understand you can have a foot in both. You can enjoy the wins, but you can still be upset with things and call for changes to be made after the season, regardless of how good things finish up. Like, just recognize if you win this division, which is very fun, and I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully you do. Like, I want to win every game. It's just more fun, whatever. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're afraid that the Saints won't make changes, I understand that, but I still don't think it should ever extend to the point to cheer for a loss, because hopefully the front office will be forward-thinking enough to be honest about the issues. And I feel like
I agree with that.
They will.
I agree with that.
They pride themselves on not being very reactive. But
I don't think this is being a reactive. I think you've had long enough of watching this that this isn't a reactive move. This isn't like a knee-jerk move. I mean, you've given these guys some serious rope. Other franchises would not have done this.
If they don't, well, then that's when you turn up the temperature and start to levy criticism, and that's where I won't do this again next year if this plays out like that. So, wow,
this is how I would put it. I agree with what T-Bob said. You should enjoy the wins. Enjoy the wins. I mean, after we beat the Bears, I understood that it wasn't the prettiest performance, but we got the job done. We got the win. I was thrilled. I was excited. Enjoy the wins, but be realistic. Be realistic about what's going on. Be realistic about the performances of these players. They're not the coaches and the players are not going to turn into people that they are not. It's been long enough in his career. Derek Carr is not going to be Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to be Drew Brees, right? Dennis Allen is not going to become Andy Reid or Bill Belichick. You got to look deeper into what's happening. I'll give you a good example. the Broncos game. Okay, so at the end of the game, the Broncos-Bills game, end of the game, if you watched, what happened? Will Lutz missed the game-winning field goal, and Buffalo got 12 men on the field. So he got a second chance, and he made it. If you just look at the box score, you could say, oh, Will Lutz, clutch, right? Made the game-winning field goal. But if you're watching, you understand, like, we escaped with that one. He missed the one before. You know, he missed an extra point in the game. Like, we might need to figure out the kicking thing. Like, I'm glad we won, but I can see, like, realistically what's happening. I'm not just basing it off the result. You know, that's how I look at games. That's how I look at things. If I was the Broncos, I would have looked at that whole situation and I would say, I'm glad we got the win. Cool. We escaped with one, but we can't miss extra points. We can't miss a game-winning field goal and hope to get bailed out to get a second chance. We have to address that issue. We have to fix that. All right? That's how I look at it. And that's how I think the best way to look at it is you take the result, happy about it, cool, but when there's issues, there's problems, or whatever needs to be fixed, you fix them. I had a commenter ask me, what happens if, and this is a great question, what happens if we back our way into 11 wins, which we easily could, win the division, go to the playoffs, win a playoff game, which all could happen. Do you still get off of Carmichael and Allen? And I would say yes. As hard as that would be and as weird of a situation as that would be to win a playoff game, win a division championship, and fire your head coach and OC, I think there's been enough of a sample size to where you're like, this isn't good enough. The culture isn't good enough. The scheme isn't good enough. The game plan isn't good enough. I don't think it's fair to just say, all right, you got your division title, you got your playoff win, we'll sign you on to a whole nother year. I'm not for mortgaging an entire year because of one result or because of like a fortunate situation. That's just not how I see it. But again, I understand it's not for everybody. Let me know in the comments below, do you think the Saints will make changes this offseason? That's the big question. Will the Saints begin to rebuild? And if so, if you think so, how do you think they'll do it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.